So for roll call, thank you. Roll call, Mike Bobbitt,
Present.
David Hahn Baker. David Hahn Baker. Michael Martin.
He was supposed to show up to the Buffalo office. He hasn't made it in yet. If he's coming,
Okay. Yep, I'll go
I'll
through
let
the
you know
list
if he
once
does.
and then I'll return to those that didn't respond. Andrea Ogawami.
I got you. I'm sorry. I accidentally.
You're here.
Yep. Maurice Reed. Maurice Reed. Miguel Santos.
Present.
Thank you. Alan Jones.
Here.
Thank you. Laura Rossman.
Here.
Thank you. Dennis Wilson.
Present.
Thank you. Tina Zerbian.
Present. Hello.
Thank you. Dan Maskin.
Here.
Thank you. Charles Quinn
Here.
and Yves Baez. Okay, I'll go through the list one more time. David Hahn Baker. Michael Martin. Maurice Reed. And Yves Baez. So chairperson, we have 9. We have not established quorum. I just checked. Yeah. So I'll turn the meeting over to you. We'll watch and see if anybody joins the meeting.
How far off?
We have 9 right now.
And what do we need?
We need 11.
All right, so
2
keep
more.
an eye open for
Yes.
anybody that straggles in.
Yes.
Good morning.
So I would suggest to me.
So let the record show Maurice Reed has
Oh,
joined.
good. So we just need
So you're
one.
at 10.
Getting close. Okay.
Good morning.
So we'll open the meeting. And at this point, we don't have a quorum, as Nikki said, but we can conduct the meeting and not vote on anything. But if we do get a quorum, we'll go back and vote on things that need to be voted on. That's so fair to you. Okay. So welcome to everybody. Good to see everybody that's here and to almost have a quorum. We can't approve minutes from any of the past meetings yet, so we will pass on that. There's a resolution for public hearing, and I'm supposed to read that, and we can't do that without a quorum. We can get a report from Manny Rosa, Director of Division of Community Service. Manny, please.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see everybody on the screen. New York, Buffalo, calling in. Good to see you, Mr. Reed. Glad you're feeling better.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask, I'm going to just reverse this a little bit. I'm going to ask Amy to discuss some of the highlights from the annual report that we just submitted to OCS. There's some good information there. I think that the advisory council will be pleased with some of the information that we received from the annual report. So Amy, you want to share that?
Sure. Before I start, I just want to let you know, I randomly picked what I'm reporting on. If there's anything I don't mention and you guys wanted those statistics, you can just send me an email and I can get them to you. And these are all based on statewide. So for federal fiscal year 23, 5,049, 324 individuals achieved more than one characteristic. 660,209 volunteer hours were donated. And of that, 405,474 were donated by low-income individuals. Under the employment domain, 103,017 youth obtained employment. 1,540 adults obtained employment up to a living wage. Under education, 7,963 adults demonstrated improved basic education. Children ages 0 to 5, or 8,376 children ages 0 to 5 demonstrated skills for school readiness. Under housing, 13,892 individuals obtained safe and affordable housing. 2,829 individuals
We can't hear you, Amy.
We lost audio in New York City.
No, New York State, yeah.
Oh,
We did at the same time. Yeah, I think we all lost them in Albany.
Hi, everyone. This is Jessica Lowell. I'll try to get a hold of Manny to let them know that the system is down and no one can hear anything.
Hi, everyone. Nikki just informed me that they're working on getting back online.
internet's back.
Oh, yeah, I heard it.
Audio. Sound settings. Audio, the phones are coming.
It's close to suspect, isn't it? Let's see if anybody showed up.
We see you and hear you in Buffalo.
Yeah, I would have.
Thank you, Michael.
Maybe somebody.
So. So.
Okay, looks like we have.
Yes.
There's an echo coming from.
Just for quorum purposes, we got an email from Michael Martin saying that he is stuck in Niagara County, but he is coming, just going to be late.
104 individuals purchased a home and 352 individuals improved their credit scores. Under the health domain, 135,982 individuals demonstrated improved mental and behavioral health and well-being. 11,566 seniors aged 65 plus maintained an independent living situation. 11,131 individuals demonstrated increased nutrition skills. Under the civic domain, 4,072 individuals increased skills, knowledge, and abilities to enable them to work with community action to improve conditions in their community. And finally, 3,362 individuals who are community action participants gained other skills, knowledge, and abilities to enhance their ability to engage. And I know Manny put on their updates. I don't have any updates to share on the annual report for next year. All I can say is that when whatever comes out, we will do the best to make it easier for us to move forward. If it means using the same one that we've been using or whatever modification, but we won't make that decision on our own. We'll meet as a group with Jackie and decide what's best for everyone.
The OCS is still reviewing our comments. We haven't even gotten, it hasn't even gone into the 30-day calendar period yet, 30 days, so who knows?
Right, exactly. They're always trying to improve somehow. And it takes a long time for them to figure out which forms they're gonna use and then change. I think the important thing about the annual report, though, it does give us a snapshot of how we're doing as a network, very frankly. The value of CSBG and, this, I'm gonna take it back to just for a moment, something that Jackie and I talk about all the time. Last year, the federal budget for CSBG was flat. There was no increase. So in essence, that with inflation, obviously that becomes a decrease. To the degree that, and people have heard me say this before, that we tell our story to educate stakeholders about the importance of CSBG is the way that we can get people to invest in CSBG, not only in New York State, but nationwide. The story has to be told. The annual report is very, very important. The annual report, by the way, is also being used for a project that the Office of Community Services is doing on the National Database Warehouse. So that in essence, these statistics, this data, not only shapes the story of CSBG, it also talks about trends. a state spending more on housing, for example, or food, or workforce development. And OCS and the state offices, as well as the community action agencies, can use this information to inform local leaders, our federal representatives, to keep CSBG on the radar. Now, we don't know what's going to happen with reference to the federal budget for 2025. Clearly, it may be late. What happened yesterday with the speaker withdrawing his bill means that there may not be a CR on October 1st. We're kind of used to that already, so this is not something new. Problem is what happens post, right, in terms of negotiations, and clearly we don't know based on what's happening with the election. So there may be all kinds of issues that face the SBG locally and at the federal level. We had a meeting yesterday with OCS. I asked the question, they expected me to ask the question about the budget and funding. They don't have an answer right now. So right now, there is no clue as to what's coming down the pipe. That should not stop us, though, from telling our story. So the statistics that Amy was reading, very frankly, talk about families, for example, 200 what? How many families that bought a home?
204.
204. And you have to remember, we're serving people at 200% of the federal poverty level or below. So those are success stories that for New York State, I think we just got to get out. So the more that story is told and the more support that we can lend to CSBG at our local level because of the network that we have and our relationship with the stakeholders and our elected officials, the better it's going to be. We did get, this year, I'm happy to say that we did get some, statewide recognition, whether it was the 60th anniversary and the governor's proclamation or the press release on the financial literacy program. There is more, at least, knowledge of CSBG, even at our level of the state. So I'm just asking that you please take the time to absorb the numbers, then working through NISCA and working as colleagues to get this story out, because it really is an investment in hopefully getting the money on the federal level. So that's important. I want to remind people that there's a legislative hearing scheduled for the 17th of this month. We sent out I think 2 emails, Nikki, if I'm not mistaken, with reference to that for written testimony or if anyone is able to testify in person. The notice is, I think, on our website as well as we sent it out as part of the emails. So there is some time, I think, to register, but also time to submit the written testimony. It's important because this hearing, by the way, just as a reminder, is done once every 3 years. It's under the CSBG Act that we have to have this legislative hearing. It was delayed somewhat this year. Normally we had it in June, working with the legislative staff. We were able to come up with the 17th. By the way, the staff at the legislature is aware that this is having its conference, NASCAP is having its conference. So that's why we're trying to get testimony or some other people that haven't testified in person before to be able to testify and get that story out. I talked about the budget, and we've begun at the DCS to talk about the American Customer Satisfaction Survey that's about to come out. Nikki is going to be setting up something hopefully with you to start talking about that. I asked about this yesterday. They expect to release this relatively shortly.
December, they told us.
Yeah.
Before that.
I would not be surprised if there was some kind of announcement at the NASCAP's conference. But
Oh, wow.
But it sounded yesterday like it was imminent, to be honest with you. So it's important that we have, I think, how many participants? 30 agencies?
There were 30 agencies.
There were 30 agencies that participated 2 years ago. We have 47 agencies, the state. So we're just suggesting that we get as much participation as possible, and we'll work with the network to, in terms of making sure that everybody understands what it's about and who's going to fill it out. Because there may be people at the agency level that beyond the executive directors, they may be able to fill out portions of the report.
Yeah, so we, state associations talked to OCS about that at the conference, at the CAP convention. So have they talked to you at all about the best person at an agency to send it to? Because you cannot forward.
I know
email
that.
because the link
Yes,
breaks.
I know.
So we had a discussion about them working with the state offices and the state associations to make sure that, because, you know, in Charlie's agency, he might be the best person,
Right.
but in Dennis's agency, he might not be the best person to answer.
Thanks, Jeff.
That's exactly.
Right, right. That's something.
Hey, guys.
Yes.
As an example.
As an
Sorry,
example.
sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure that before anybody speaks, can he mention his name so we can have the clear
Oh.
record transcription? That would be
Well,
appreciated.
Sorry, I apologize.
This is Abdullah.
Jackie, Amy Cola. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know, Nikki, did you want to raise anything as part of the DCS updates at this point?
Well, next week we have the NISTA conference, so we were gonna go over a timeline of starting the drafting of the 25-26 CSBG state plan in February. I think that, I know already.
Time,
I
yes.
think that's the only thing that I would like to add, but.
And again, the important part of that is, and luckily, the last couple of drafts, we've been working very closely with NISCA and the network, and we want to continue that, of course. We expect, not major changes, but we expect some changes in terms of hopefully the monitoring process and where we work with the network in terms of the database or getting information from the network in terms of just moving forward. You know, we've started, we had stop on the database, but we're trying to work something out with the network, some SharePoint and some pilots. We're still trying to work on that database something. I think that's it, Dennis.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Manny, everybody else. Next, we're going to call on Jackie Orr, CEO of NISCA, for some updates from NISCA. Jackie.
Yes, Jackie Orr, the CEO of the New York State Community Action Association. All right, so I'm going to do an update on the activities of NISCA, you know, kind of overall and more specifically in the last few months. Many of you know that we have NISCA Learn, which is our online learning hub that we developed several years ago. That continues to be something that's very valuable and popular, so to speak, among the community action agencies. Right now, we have 18 interactive courses and over 60 recorded webinars. So as long as the presenter allows us, we record a webinar and post it on NISCA Learn. So if folks weren't able to attend at the time that the webinar happened, then they're able to get on NISCA Learn and get it, or if they want to go back and listen to it. The newest course we added was the art of writing good case notes. That actually came from a webinar, and that course has gotten a lot of views and participants. And the last I had looked, we had 2,433 active users. And it's just increased since then. So again, that's something that's very valuable with the network. We continue to do trainings and webinars. We really base it on identified needs. So we do a training and technical assistance survey every year, and agency staff tell us what it is that they're interested in doing or getting to know more about. So we did a home visiting strategies for frontline workers, and that was probably one of our most popular. We had over 150 participants participate in that webinar. So we are following it up with another one. I think it's going to be in October. We also presented a webinar supporting young children who are homeless for temporary housing with the New York State Department of Ed. They've done that in the past. That's also was well attended. And then we recently did a webinar addressing biases in the workplace, implementing DEI. We will continue to do introduction to Roma trainings. Those are all now done online, so anybody can participate. We typically do about 5 or 6 a year. We used to do them more often. Well, actually now we do 3 or 4 a year. We used to do 5 or 6 because we would have waiting lists. The waiting lists have sort of decreased. So now doing one about every 3 months, it has been working. We are still doing our near science and ACES training, thanks to the Department of State, in 2020. In 2020, we did a training for community action agency staff who wanted to become certified as near science trainers, and we have 15 trainers who continue to do trainings within their staff, in their agency, in their own local communities, and also for the network. And also in conversation with Manny and Nikki, we had a conversation with staff at the Department of Labor to potentially do some training with the Department of Labor folks. So we're still in conversation about that. So that could be a really exciting opportunity for NISCA and the trainers. As Nikki already mentioned, we're doing our annual professional development conference next week. We have over 325 folks there. It's the biggest one we've had in a long time. So we're anticipating that should be a great time, again, to celebrate the 60th commemoration of the signing of the Economic Opportunity Act. We continue to do our Emerging Leader Institute. That is also something that's very well regarded in NISCA. This year we have 52 participants, 40 in their first year and 12 in their second year. That has been growing every year. We started it in 2010 and it just continues to grow. We do 3 seminars, 2 of them are in person and 1 we do remotely. We will be doing an executive director CEO seminar. We typically do that every November, so we'll be doing it 2 days after Election Day. We're all going to be convening in Rochester or Fairport, and we'll have a great webinar or a great seminar, and we also carve off a piece of that for new EDs so that they get to connect with each other. This year, for the first time in several years, we facilitated a CCAP group with Certified Community Action Professional. We used to do it and then we stopped and then we started doing it again. I am not a CCAP, but I co-facilitated. I didn't really facilitate. I just kind of organized the meetings with Renee Tuggle at Mohawk Valley Community Action. She's a CCAP, so she really facilitated the group. And we had 4 community action agency staff attain their CCAP, as well as Charlie at NISCA, which is really great. So now Charlie will continue to facilitate the CCAP study groups. We call them study groups going forward. So it's nice to be able for NISCA to continue to be involved with that. There were some folks who were in this year and weren't able to complete all the requirements, so they will continue on. It's a 3-year program. So if you don't complete the requirements in the first year, you have 2 more years to do that. So we have a few folks who will continue, and then we'll have new folks that will be joining. We also have started a community action young professional group. We just started that this year. The partnership started there, so we thought, well, partnership has, well, we have to have one too. So we have about 15 folks from representing community action agencies across the state. They've met a few times, and we try to mirror our activities with what the national partnership is doing. And we have a person at Single Opportunities who is on the national young professional group, so she's also on our group, so we have that synergy between the 2 groups. We kind of paused on the community action plan template document. As you know, me and Jessica Lowell with the DOS and community action agency staff have worked on developing the community action plan template so that we can do more, more consistent reporting. So for those agencies who have a head start, then you can look at the template and see ways that you could report your Head Start program using our community action plan template. It's a guiding tool. It's not supposed to be, copy and paste. We did 10 of those. We were so proud of that. We've gotten such good feedback from the network. And then DOS goes and now, or not DOS, OCS is going to be changing the annual report. At this point, we don't know to what extent. So we put a pause on our work to see what changes come in back to us. And probably what we'll do is go back and revisit those templates and make them mirror whatever service codes have changed and whatever MPIs have changed. We continue to meet with the Roma Alliance. I have the pleasure of working again with Jessica and Charlie and a group of community action agency staff. We meet quarterly. We've been doing our regional meetings this year. We had 2 regional meetings that were remote. Nick and I and Manny were talking the years that we are developing the state plan and need that feedback from the network. We'll do them in person. But because we're in that second year of the 2-year plan, we decided to do them remotely. We did have representatives of the Permanent Commission on Access to Justice speak at both of those meetings. That has been a really good partnership between NISCA and that group. Recently, Maureen Abbott and Amy Turner spoke with their group. They have a rural justice group, and they were looking for feedback from the network about the barriers in rural communities to getting legal services. So they're actually going to be coming to the executive director seminar as well. They're very excited to partner with us. So that has been good. We have our listservs, and that's a very important part of the network as well. We call them our affinity groups. So we have affinity groups for finance staff, HR, executive assistants. We did Phoebe when she was at NISCA, she started our AI group. And that, again, has been valuable for those folks to be able to connect and, share resources with each other. We released the poverty report. It's a little bit later this year than we want it to be, but we wait for the ALICE data. So the ALICE data is so late in coming out, so that didn't get released until June. So we released at the very end of June. So I was just on a call the other day, so we're hoping that will be released sooner next year so we can get the poverty report out to folks. But the data gets updated in the data hub. So for agencies, they can look in the data hub and get the data sooner than when the poverty report gets released. And then the last thing is we continue to be the lead for Region 2, and which is working with the associations in Puerto Rico and New Jersey. And we just worked with the Goodman Center on a 4-week storytelling course. So we had community action agency staff from all the agencies across the region attend the storytelling course with the efforts to, as Manny just talked about, to tell our story better. So we're following up with emails and, so working with them, continuing to work with that group and the Goodman Center, and just, how can we publish those stories? How can we share those stories through annual reports and our website and social media? So we're really hoping to continue that. That storytelling is actually one of the 4 or 5 goals in our federal grant based on OCS. So OCS is very, has placed a lot of emphasis on telling our story collectively and individually as community action agencies. So that's it. Any questions?
Any questions for Jackie? Thank you, Jackie.
Well,
Very enlightening. Next item is, it's kind of old business. Review of current members of the advisory council vacancies and recommendations or people in the pipeline. You get a quorum?
We do not have.
Oh, I thought you had a signal there. So who's going to do that from the Department of State? Talk about the vacancies and.
I'll start and then speak tonight. So obviously this is a challenge, continues to be a challenge with reference to recruitment. We had a candidate and in July we were informed that she would a candidacy. We have 2 coming in the governor's office. These would be the executive appointees. And anyone who's gone through that process, I know Jackie, talking about Jackie, because the vetting takes a long time.
Yep.
Very deep, very thorough, and I don't know, we got constantly talking to our intergovernmental person here at the OS with reference to reminding the executive chamber about our recruitment needs and need to fill these vacancies, and also the need to work with the legislature as well for the secretary vacancies. As I said, we have 2.5, but now I have to find 2 more executive. And who else knows what changes can come. I received some names of interest that we're now vetting ourselves internally to submit, and we want to, time is of the essence, especially, as I said, going myself, and I want to get this done as quickly as possible. So where are we at with those resumes?
Yep, so we have a list and they
How many?
are about 5 people who are interested. They've been asked to send their resumes again so that Manny can vet them and then we can tell them what join the board. You guys have a full list of active members in your packet. Again, Manny said there's 2 for the governor section and then we have 1 vacancy in the Senate and 2 vacancies for the Assembly.
Okay, anything further? Anybody have any questions?
So for the
Vacancy
vacancy,
Hi, Tina Zerbian here.
Yes.
Are we entitled to know who these candidates are so that we can reach out to other folks in the event that whatever happens, they're not able to fulfill that seat?
Yeah, I will, I just was told about that request. I need to work with our intergovernmental person on that. I don't want to answer that necessarily, not knowing what the protocol is. But I will share the request.
okay, so this is Jackie again, this is a question, the 1 Senate appointee and the 1 Assembly appointee. So is, 2, sorry, 2. So if someone is interested in that, do they have to send their resumes to you or do they still go to their Senate and Assembly person? What's the process?
Right, so the 5 people right now that are interested, we ask that they send their resumes here first. So that
Okay.
we can make sure that their interests align with that of the advisory council board. And then we can walk them through what they need to do
Okay,
to seek a fee.
okay, all right.
To try to expedite as much as.
Yeah.
But the challenge is it's not a bipartisan process on the
That's
legislative
very
side.
true. That's
So,
very, very true. Yes.
so that
And also-
just adds another layer of complexity.
So let me ask you this, if you can't identify personally who they are they from CAP agencies? Are they CAP agency employees?
Some are, some have been, yes. Some are people who are activists in the community. As you know, the board has CAP representatives, executive directors, and we have some that are not from the action agency. So it's a mixture, and I think to a degree, I'll give you an example of something that we've been thinking about. We'd like to get a voice maybe from a board chairperson from community action agency board to get that perspective as well, because we haven't had that, so we've been talking to some folks about that. But at the same time, and this is conversations that we've had, Dennis, you and I, and same thing, with reference to how in-depth and discouraging sometimes the vetting process is. Some of the questions are very personal, people don't want to go through that or relate to that, so it kind of turns people off as well.
Well, that's the governor's.
Yeah, so that's why.
Legislative ones are very easy.
So there are the challenges. It's been challenging, as you know, we've been going through this for a little while, but actively trying to get this done.
Appreciate it. So, any other questions?
Yes.
Sure.
Charlie Quinn. I'm reading this right, that there's actually 8 vacancies on the board. Maggie Evans is done.
There are 7 vacancies. So
Okay.
Maggie Evans retired and said she emailed us, she wishes no longer to continue. She recommended the other candidate that Manny spoke of earlier. And then that candidate withdrew.
We
Because of
actually
that,
submitted
yeah.
our name.
Okay.
And
So
then,
with 7 vacancies, we only have 5 who are interested right now, so we.
Yes,
definitely
absolutely,
need more.
yes. And again, one of the conversations that we've had in the past is the recruitment amongst yourselves about possibly offering some names based on your own networking and that you might think might suit this as well. So I would encourage that, very frankly, you especially members of your council, know what it entails to be a member of the council and going through the vetting process and find individuals that might be interested. By all means, pass those resumes to us as well.
And not really knowing what the gubernatorial process is, would it be helpful at all to have assembly or state appointees move to gubernatorial appointee to make it easier for new folks to
That's
get?
separate, that's separate, so I can't read. Okay,
Anything else on this topic? Okay. Next item is the election of officers, which we can't conduct without a quorum.
it's the option.
So, what do we want to do?
Oh, let's see, if Michael dropped in, I don't think he did, they would have said something.
That's-
I believe he's on his way.
I'll do, one more call check for David Hahn Baker. And Eves Bias.
Do you want to recess for about 10 minutes or so and see if?
Whatever you want to do. That's up to the group. It's a good idea. We'll just break for 10 minutes and see what happens. Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
I got nowhere to go.
Huh?
I got nowhere to go.
You got, Dan's been on a recess.
Summer's been a recess.
Okay. We can have a conversation with you.
Yeah. Okay, so for those on the call, we're gonna take a 10-minute recess. Come back in 10 minutes at 10:55.
And I think that Miguel and Andrea had a couple things they wanted to bring up that we can discuss because they don't require a vote. So I don't know who wants to go first, but
Great.
Where's
Okay.
yours?
Okay, great. I'm unmuted. Great.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks so much. This is Andrea Ogunwumi for the minutes. I had a question in reference to the remote video conferencing and the change in the draft, and specifically about extraordinary circumstances. And what does that mean exactly? And really the reasoning behind extraordinary circumstances rather than just a circumstance.
This is Rob Vanderbilt's counsel. I'm just gonna jump in and I'm gonna be optimistic that we'll get quorum and that that might be a great topic to discuss at that time. And I would suggest just tabling that to see how that shakes out. If we don't get quorum, maybe circle back to that question. And Valentine, my colleague from counsel's office, could take point on answering that.
okay, thank you.
Yep. I just think that, all members might benefit from that conversation, so why not wait for folks to get here?
Miguel?
Okay, and that's good, at least as part of our minutes, so that is now reflective in our minutes to refer back to that conversation. Jessica said about what is our role in a sense of identifying needs. Those words caught my attention. As an advisory board member, I've been putting a lot of attention as to what is my role, what is our role as an advisory board member. We take, as you know, we take our role serious because we represent our regional communities. So I have sent different thoughts throughout the 2 years, maybe 3 years, about different issues that my community has brought up. For example, when it comes for the migrant population throughout the state, what role can your department play in order to better assist these undocumented migrant individuals? We are scrambling, we, meaning all the agencies, in particular nonprofits, are scrambling. How do we service these individuals? And what does that mean? In order, while they live in New York State, how do we assist them not to fall in dangerous cracks? I'm very concerned that now those individuals that are housed in hotels, that funding source is drying up. And as they move out of the hotels, now there are more potential of increasing the homeless population throughout New York State. So here in Buffalo, many of us have gotten together in order, how do we prepare for this? So I have several things on my list here, but to put this on record so that we can have a conversation in future meetings about what does this cause these existing residents of New York State? What issues are they encountering, and how are we addressing it? Any thoughts before I move on to my next item?
If I can, Miguel, this is Manny Rosa. We have limited amount of money clearly out of CSBG to do that. In the last 2 years, we have put out contracts to help stabilize as opposed to long-term solutions that you're talking about. Because the governor has put out money clearly, and the Office for New Americans has been also taking the lead on this. So we've been working with some of our agencies and some nonprofits around the state, especially upstate, to help stabilize, get temporary housing, food, some transportation, and some assistance with documentation where possible. The longer term clearly is not within our purview to be able to come up with a solution to work with the network or to work in conjunction with OCS down in Washington, because we raised this with them, with the National Association, with NISCA, to talk about this as a major issue. And I will tell you that in conversations with other state colleagues, this has come up a lot as a problem for their offices as well, for CSBG, because clearly the demographics change within the communities. The necessity of dealing with the unique needs of migrants is also something that we have to train ourselves for and be aware of. And as we do our community needs assessments, clearly I think that needs to be reflected as well. So you raised a good point. You have tried to put some money into this, but it's very limited in what we can do. But we'll continue to raise it as an issue, not only for our office and other state colleagues, but within the agencies that we work with as well. Okay.
But before, thank you.
Okay.
I know we have quorum, but this is a very important topic on my list. When I retired from National Grid, I then ended up working for DOCS, the state stuff. I've encountered that individuals who have served their time in the state prison system, now because of the crime that they committed, unfortunately, a lot of sex offenders, but when their term comes, they are not released, they cannot be released because they have nowhere to go. The question is, so now they continue to be incarcerated, sometimes 2 years afterwards, and if they get transferred to another prison, then they start from scratch all over again, adding more years. My thought is, and anything that I bring up, I'm willing to join whoever, I'm willing to put in the time as well, and to assist. So they cannot, as we know, be placed in a location where there are any schools or any children. So, unfortunate, what areas in New York State may be available? Unfortunate, it's many of our rural communities. So when we look at the rural community, where can they absorb some of these individuals? I'm thinking that maybe some of our agricultural, they need employees. Maybe some of these people can be housed there because they provide housing. Maybe some of our dairying farms. And I spoke to Kelly Dobbs, who used to run the 211 program in Buffalo, who is now involved with the 211 statewide. She may be able to identify agencies in particular in the rural communities who may be willing to take on this charge. So I just wanted to put that on record that Debbie Dobbs was interested at least furthering this discussion in order to identify additional organizations that may take on this charge.
So,
Thank you.
Miguel, if I may, so we can move, and thank you for that. What I'm gonna suggest is Nikki Bastoni, who's our deputy director, is now working on a nationwide work group with NASCAS, which is the National Association of Community Service Programs. And it just so happens that one of their tasks is dealing with rural counties and services. And I think that if we can pursue this conversation with her, maybe we can figure out how to raise the consciousness of folks and see what we can do about looking at solutions. But just follow up with us, okay?
Thank you.
No problem.
Make a quick side comment. I'm happy to have a sidebar later on. Someone in my network is a senior counselor in state corrections, and I was unaware of the dynamic you mentioned where people are being kept past their term of incarceration. I had not heard about that. So if we could just have a sidebar, I'll just put you in touch with one another so you can flag it to his attention, and maybe he has some advice from being inside state corrections. It's Mike Bobbitt, DYCD, so I can do an email later on about that. And I am generally interested in the topic, although the circumstances in New York City probably very different than Buffalo.
Thank you. Can you please give me your name again, please?
Mike Bobbitt, New York City Department of Youth and Community Development.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Now we're gonna go to the top of the agenda.
Just reflect that Michael Martin
Yes.
joined the meeting at 11 o'clock, so you now have quorum.
We have a quorum, thankfully, and we will now go back to items that require votes and action. So item number.
Fast.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Do it fast.
Do it fast, okay.
Can I interrupt for one more minute?
Yeah.
No worries. Because this is an advisory council meeting, we do need you to turn your camera on.
Okay,
Thank you.
Oh,
you're welcome.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome. Okay, so the next item that we need to have a vote on is the approval of the minutes for some previous meetings, which are 2/17/22, 5/19/22, 3/30/23, and 7/27/23. I'll move. Sam Maskey, motion, Charlie second. Any discussion, any questions, corrections, additions, deletions? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Anybody, anyone opposed? Abstaining? Motion carried. Minutes have duly been accepted by the council.
Sorry, we were muted here. Michael Martin, I have to abstain for the March 30th meeting as I was not present.
Okay.
Yeah, but in favor of
Noted
it.
in, noted in the minutes. Resolution. Get it out here. Once again, good morning, as the resolution says, good morning. Public hearing, opening statement, good morning. Time is now approximately 11:05, would we agree? Or 11:05. September 12, 2024. This is a public hearing conducted by the Community Services Block Grant Advisory Council pursuant to section 103-A of the Public Officers Law for the purpose of receiving public comment on the proposed adoption of the CSBG Advisory Council of a resolution for 1, authorizing the use of video conferencing, and 2, establishing written procedures governing member and public attendance for meetings of the CSBG Advisory Council and meetings of any and all committees or subcommittees of the CSBG Advisory Council now existing or hereafter established. As the chairperson of the CSBG Advisory Council, I will serve as a presiding officer for today's hearing. Section 103A of the Public Officers Law authorizes a public body to allow its members to participate in a meeting remotely under extraordinary circumstances at locations that do not allow for in-person physical attendance by the public, provided that such public body adopts a resolution authorizing such remote attendance and establishes a written procedure governing member and public attendance consistent with section 103A of the Public Officers Law. If adopted, the proposed resolution would, one, authorize the CSBG Advisory Council and any and all committees or subcommittees of the CSBG Advisory Council now existing or hereafter established to use video conferencing excuse me, to conduct meetings in the manner contemplated by section 103A of the Public Officers Law. An example, meetings where a member was unable to be physically present at any such meeting location due to extraordinary circumstances is permitted to attend and participate in the meeting by video conferencing from a remote location that is not open to the public, and two, establish written procedures governing member and public attendance for such meetings. The proposed resolution would also confirm that the CSBG Advisory Council continues to authorize the CSBG Advisory Council and any and all committees or subcommittees of the CSBG Advisory Council now existing or hereafter established to use video conferencing to conduct meetings where each member wishing to attend and participate in such meeting is physically present in such meeting at a location where the public can attend. Notice of the public hearing for this proposed resolution and written procedures was posted on the Department of State's website on September 6, 2024. All persons wishing to present comments at today's hearing should sign the registration sheet or message the host of the WebEx. Speakers will be called upon in the order in which they appear on the registration sheet or received via the message in WebEx. All persons wishing to present comments will also be asked to state if they are appearing on behalf of a group or organization. Section 103 of the Public Officers Law authorizes the public body to allow its members to participate in a meeting remotely under extraordinary circumstances at locations that do not allow for in-person physical attendance by the public, provided that such public body adopts a resolution authorizing such remote attendance and establishes written procedures governing member and public attendance. We did. Although it's on the second page.
Oh, gee.
I thought
Oh, my goodness.
it seems to be redundant.
So let's go to here.
That's where we're talking. Okay.
So, all right, so you got.
It ain't my fault, folks. I'll tell you that. Go ahead. Go to here, right? Yeah, okay, thanks. Glad you nudged me. Okay, so now,
So have you received any written remarks thus far?
I have not. Has anybody received any written remarks on this?
No.
From mistake? Okay. I will be making a video recording of this hearing. When called upon to speak, please introduce yourself and identify your affiliation or any group that you represent. Speak slowly and clearly. If you have a written copy of your remarks, please submit a copy to me. All comments received, including comments presented at today's hearing, will be reviewed and assessed. Okay, so does anybody want to comment or speak?
Mike Bobbitt, New York City Department of Youth and Community Development. I appreciate the nature of the what are we talking about, resolution or whatever it is. I recognize there may be emergency circumstances, and in the interest of the council, the advisory council being able to function properly, I'm glad that we have a quorum. I'm glad that this meeting is taking place and we're entertaining a vehicle to strengthen the participation and the ability of the advisory council to function.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else?
Yes, Andrea Ogunwumi, Economic Opportunity Program. I have a comment. One, I do thank you for the forward movement on this and the upgrade and update around being able to consider extraordinary circumstances. I ask for clarification around what that actually means. So that was a question that I had to ask for clarification. Thank you.
I leave it to you whether or not you want to pivot to Valentine to answer the question or continue to collect comments and up to you.
Would you answer the question after the comments?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go and see if anybody else has any further comments, and then Rob will address the question after that process has been completed. Anybody else? Yes, Charlie.
Charlie Quinn, I don't know if this is appropriate for public comment or just discussion among the advisory council. But the resolution as it's written, the small room number 1, that's part of it, and I believe it's required by the law. Mike Bobbitt mentioned that this might help us continue to conduct business, but the people who attend remotely don't constitute part of the quorum. Is that correct? We need to have a physical quorum in place.
So, Valentine, are you still on?
Yes, I can address that.
All right, so
question.
let's also put a pin in that comment or question and see if there's any others.
Okay. Any further comments or questions?
No. No.
Yes, sir, go ahead. Yes, okay. Myself, Dennis Wilson, Fulmont Community Action Agency CEO, I'd just like to comment. I think this is the right step to go. We're moving in a forward direction to make it easier for everybody to participate, and most importantly, hopefully achieve a quorum and vote. That's all I have to say. Okay, if there's no other comments, Rob, do you want to address the 2 questions that are pending at this point?
Sure, and I'll Rob Vanderblest, counsel, I'll turn it over to Valentine, also in counsel's office, to address the 2 questions raised.
Hi, yes, thank you, Rob. As mentioned, I am Valentine Castillo. I'm working the Office of General Counsel, DOS. I'm the Excelsior Fellow. To address the first question, under Section 103A2C, extraordinary circumstances include disability, illness, caregiving responsibilities, or any other significant or unexpected factors or events which would preclude a member from being physically present at a meeting. So that would address the first question. The second question, we would still need a physical quorum. So even though someone can attend the meeting remotely, they'll still be able to vote, but they will not count as part of the quorum.
Then what are we doing?
Rob Vanderblest from counsel's office. Let me bring this back. Okay, so as Valentine explained, 103A of the Public Officers Law, that's a law. It has some requirements. So Andrea, to your question about what constitutes extraordinary circumstances, there's the list that Valentine ran through. They're examples, they're not exhaustive. Okay. The procedures that are proposed for your consideration include a procedure by which the member that has a potential extraordinary circumstance notify us beforehand. I understand how ridiculous that might be because extraordinary circumstances often happen without notice. But so, for example, because this touches home with me, childcare, right? So childcare is something that I hope is predictable to the extent possible. You can notify, Manny or Nikki beforehand. Hey, I need to be at home. I got a kid to watch. And then we can craft our public notice identifying that there was extraordinary circumstances and then individual will be attending the meeting from a location not open to the public. That's what we mean by remote. The second one, as to physical in-person quorum. So it's gotten a little bit tricky. Bear with me. Okay, so extraordinary circumstances. We have a quorum requirement of 11. We need 11 people in locations physically accessible to the public, noticed in our notice. There is a wrinkle that the legislature added in after they first passed that law. They added it in later. If an individual has a disability within a certain definition that's prohibiting them from attending in person, they can count towards quorum. So bringing it all together, we need 11 people attending a meeting at a location physically accessible to the public and noticed in our notice, or having a disability that prevents them from attending in those physical locations. Beyond that, if individuals are experiencing an extraordinary circumstance, they can, with proper notice, participate in the meeting and count towards voting, provided that we have first met that quorum requirement that I mentioned before. I understand, given our current numbers, the whole circumstance is a little bit tricky to get to, but that is what Public Officers Law 103-A requires. That being said, unless the advisory council adopts any of those procedures, we can't do any of the extraordinary circumstances stuff at all.
But what, I'm sorry.
What if, no extraordinary circumstance, but I know I'm not going to be at a particular meeting to get to Albany or New York City or Buffalo, but I can attend at my office, and I open my office to the public, and you notice my office as a location. Would that help us?
Conceivably, we'd have to run through a whole bunch of stuff, like whether or not your office is equipped to provide the kind of video conferencing that's consistent with the Americans with Disabilities Act, whether or not it's bona fide open, things of that nature, whether or not, we're going to be able to make the meeting run in that circumstance.
And I brought up that question. I'm not opposed to this resolution. I just wanted to look at what we're addressing.
But maybe I'm missing something. If we don't have a quorum physically at one of these sites, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
So then we'd not achieve the ability to, our problem is getting a quorum.
Correct.
And this doesn't do anything towards that.
Well, so, as I mentioned before, I'm hopeful, right? So how many total members do we have right now?
Total members, 13.
13. So it would help. You could have 11 people physically present or if they have a disability, attending remotely, and satisfy quorum, and up to 2 who would have an extraordinary circumstance, be able to attend from a location not open to the public, who would be able to participate and vote in the meeting.
But if we only had 10, those 2 wouldn't count. So I'm not trying to be difficult. I don't see where we're achieving anything beneficial to achieve a quorum. But we're doing this to achieve a quorum. And
This is Mike. I would say the one criterion where we're enfranchising people who have a physical disability and it would be a hardship for them to get to the meeting, that's something that I've been holding on to. We added that language, if I remember correctly, for DYCD, so I am appreciative of that language. It may not be everything that we might wish for, but I am pleased to see that we're enfranchising and being inclusive. Should there be a member, I don't know personally if there is, but should there be a member in the future, advisory council member who has a physical disability, it would be hard for them to get physically to a meeting. Outside of that, though, you're right. Like, in terms of where the rubber hits the road, that you still have to have an in-person quorum.
Well,
Right,
Dan is next. Go ahead, Dan, ask.
My concern is that, we have 7 vacancies. We have no real strategy for filling them. And that a resolution like this may add another layer of confusion in terms of the understanding that there have to be 11 people present.
Right.
And I'm not sure that this is really the way to go right now. Because of that, I mean, I think people are looking for a teleconference option so that they don't have to make the trip, take a long journey, end up there and there's no quorum anyway, things like that. But I'm just concerned that this is going to add a layer of confusion to the process.
Hi, this is Laura Rossman. I just had a question if maybe other state office buildings, because there are many that are closer to Andrea and I, for example, that we could attend, if more locations could be open, that might help solve the quorum problem too. I don't know if that's possible.
I could jump in on that. And in terms of making it more accessible, as Rob mentioned, if a space is open to the public for one of these meetings and it's ADA accessible or compliant, that you could have a member be in that place and would count as a quorum. So I think this is more of like a safeguard if someone has some like either a disability or something that is really preventing them from being physically at one of the locations to still count in the quorum. So for example, today we only had 10 people available to be in person, and one person, you know, had a last minute childcare issue, maybe babysitter couldn't show up or something, they would still be able to count as part of the quorum, even if they're in a place that is not accessible for the public, like their office and like their home office or something like that.
I thought we just said a minute ago they wouldn't count as part of the quorum. That's what I think some people are.
They would be part of a quorum if they have a disability. So
Only if they have a disability.
correct that.
You mentioned a childcare problem. That's not a disability.
Right, yeah, I scratched that. Correct that, thank you. Yep.
So it's only, okay, right.
Yeah,
So
it's
not
a
part of this.
disability.
Any other
Good.
questions, comments? Comment?
It's not part of the.
Tina?
Ellen, please, yes.
Please.
Mega.
Tina's,
Sorry, go on.
Go ahead.
sorry, Mike, Tina Zerbian. So 11 members constitutes a quorum if we have 20 members or if we have 13 members that are seated.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so part of the solution seems to me that we need to get these vacancies filled ASAP so that 11 people can physically be in these places.
Can we clarify that? Because I was in the room here presuming that a quorum will always have to be 50% plus one of seated members. That's not true?
That's not true. Again, Rob Vanderbilt from Council's office. So this is the general construction law. If you are all still around, and I recently watched the video and I can assure you that you are, going back to 2017, Council has continued to advise that general construction law defines quorum for a public body, and it doesn't matter the seated members, it matters the total. So 20 is the total for the advisory council, seated or unseated, majority being 11. 11 is quorum, regardless of how many folks you actually have in the seats. That is very different than how not-for-profits operate under the not-for-profit law, which might be why this continues to be a perennial question. But yes, 11 is quorum for the CSBG Advisory Council.
This is Miguel. One of our members in Buffalo has a severe disability, making it very difficult to travel in a wheelchair and multiple. And I'm looking at the number of times that this member was able to attend our meetings. And it is the reason why this member was not able to attend these meetings, I believe, is because he has he's very disabled. So we do have someone already in that category. So that's something that obviously we need to find some resolution, because he wants to participate, or this person wants to participate and is physically unable to make the journey into the office.
Thank you. Further comments? Questions?
Alan Jones.
Alan, I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No problem. I think that may have resolved the question, but I was curious as to whether we don't currently have a provision for someone who has a disability to attend the meetings and add to quorum, correct?
So that's actually addressed by Public Officers Law 103A. These procedures are really for the extraordinary circumstances part. The procedure in the resolution does address it because it references 103A, but that's sort of the territory that we are in right now.
Okay, so regardless of we adopt the resolution or not, the person with a disability can still attend.
Can still count towards quorum as long as that is my understanding of the current interpretation of Public Officers Law 103-A.
So how come that person's never been notified of that?
So
that's really sad. I know that's not the purpose. of
I
this
don't
hearing.
know that that's factually true, and I don't know that we need to get into.
I said that, I know it's not the, okay. All right, so,
Thank you.
so if we don't pass it, that person still has the ability to attend because of the circumstances.
Sorry.
Somebody else had a comment?
Yeah, it's Mike again. The point that Charles and Laura have raised is not really considered by this resolution, but I would urge Department of State to continue to reflect on it, namely the idea of opening up additional locations around the state that DOS considers are ADA accessible, and when meetings are being promoted, also also announcing up front those other sites. So especially to Laura's point, if there are other locations, other state facilities where Department of State has the ability to leverage those buildings, and that makes it easier for other members to come, that is not part of this resolution, but in the interest of this ongoing discussion about reaching quorum, it seems like that would be desirable. So I don't know how that gets taken up or how that gets further considered, but you know, that it seemed to be a very promising idea.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, at this point, I was going to say, I'd like to let the record reflect that there are no more responses from the people attending the hearing right now. And it's now approximately 11:28, okay? As there is no other persons present this morning. I think it didn't go to afternoon, so no point in reply. We're working on that though. Who wishes to comment upon the proposed resolution or procedure? I declare this hearing closed. Okay, so now we need to take a vote amongst advisory council on whether to adopt this or not.
This is Charlie Quinn. I move to adopt the resolution.
Okay.
So that was Jones.
Second it.
Move to second it.
Okay. Any other further discussion before we call the vote?
What is specifically the resolution we're voting on? What are the wording?
The wording was to adopt this.
Oh, we have it here. Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes. So hearing no other discussion, we'll call the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Abstaining? Motion carried. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the election of officers for the advisory council. Any nominations from the floor?
Charlie Quinn, I have a nomination. I nominate Mike Bobbitt, Alan Jones, and Laura Rossman to the positions of chair, vice chair, and second vice chair respectively.
Second. Second. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Okay, second. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstaining? Motion carried. Congratulations. And I've ended my term.
Dennis, Dennis, it's,
For me.
For you.
Oh, thank you.
Dennis?
help,
And just
Dennis,
for the minutes, a note of thanks to Dennis. I mean, he's slogged through how many years since before the great pandemic and stuff like that. It's, I think, much appreciated by me personally and the network.
Thanks, Dan. It's been a pleasure to work with
Appreciate it.
everybody, the executive
Great.
committee, everybody on the council, and work with Manny and Nikki and other staff, Amy, everybody from the Department of State. It's been a pleasure, really has, but it's time to change, and we finally got a forum to do that. So, thank you.
That's the torch for the younger generation.
I appreciate your long-term confidence in me over all these years. Thank you. Next meetings, or next meeting schedule for 2025, who's got that? Has it been determined yet, or open for discussion?
So, we sent out a poll the last time, we didn't have very many responses. Again, there are 13 members, so I think we had 6 responses. What we can do is send out another poll if that is agreeable to the council. Is there a month that you would like to look at now? I know we usually historically have tried to do one in the spring and one in the fall because of travel.
March is 6 months from now.
March, April, okay? Okay, so we'll put together a few dates and send out a poll for everyone.
That's great. That sounds good.
I would just remind everyone that, next year is gonna be a state plan year, and getting the advisory council's input on the state plan and corresponding meetings of this body with that process always makes a lot of sense.
Is there any sense in scheduling a meeting till we know when the draft is gonna be?
We'll start meeting with in February. At least that's been our pattern.
Okay.
We would bring together Nikki and Community Action Agency representatives. So I think maybe March doesn't work out well for the advisory council. We'll just get kicking that process off.
Just historically as well, we've had extraordinary meetings for the advisory council, just to deal with the plan as well. So we make.
Oh, right, okay.
But DOS may call that. DOS may call that, I guess around the time that the final draft and the hearings. So we do the hearing, then we try to make whatever changes based on the hearing, then bring it back to the council so that we can then tie up everything that's perfect.
Okay.
So it's pretty much the same pattern as we have for the last one. But I would urge, very frankly, the most important part is the input of the network on this. So the advisory council is very important to that, but also the work with this.
Okay, so my last official duty, it's real important to call for an adjournment, and we made it before afternoon. Somebody want to make a motion?
Dennis, wait.
Dennis, before we do that, Michael Martin, Native American Community Services, apologize for being late, but I knew I had to get here no matter what to help at least get quorum, so I appreciate your patience in me arriving. But just as a follow-up to the discussion we had on the open meeting laws, is it possible for our body to pass a resolution encouraging the state, because we can't be the only body that, I know we're not the only body that's struggling at times with quorum, to continue to do the business of the state for the benefit of the people of the state, that we can pass a resolution to encourage the state to reconsider the quorum standards, to take it off the majority of the council and the majority of the seats filled at least, or to consider how we could potentially eventually get to the point where remote participants under extenuating circumstances can be considered for quorum, or encourage the state to have some standards for filling the vacancies on these bodies that they create. We need to work more efficiently as a state for the benefit of the people that benefit from the works that these bodies do. So this is not just a comment on this council, but in general. And I just wonder if we could pass a resolution kind of sending our encouragement to the state to explore those issues a little bit more deeply or further. Just as encouragement, if nothing else.
Second that.
I agree.
Are you looking to me for a legal opinion? Rob Vanderbilt from Council's office. So as to what resolutions the advisory council can choose to pass, I mean, I have no opinion, right? The impact or effect, I would leave for all of you with finer minds than mine. My only suggestion would be between now and the next meeting, if someone wants to take a stab at drafting that proposal or thinking through what that looks like, that might make sense, or you all discuss it right now and land somewhere. But if you are going to have a resolution, or a sense of the board, I would encourage you to make that as part of a vote to make sure that the action of the council is clear.
I don't know what everybody feels, but there was a second in this room, so I don't know if people in the other locations want to comment, if they want to delay. It's really just encouragement. I mean, we can't do much more than that. We can't change laws, but we can encourage deeper exploration of their impact on these bodies.
We could do a resolution or just a letter from the advisory council. I mean, Charlie, anybody got an idea?
I mean, Rob has an excellent point that we should actually have some words written down before we.
So we ought to take.
I think it's an excellent idea, Mike.
It is. So let's get a draft and maybe at the next meeting when we have a quorum, we'll do that.
But there is a motion.
We have a quorum now, I think.
Can we do a letter?
Oh, okay, so somebody work a resolution. So, right. I thought Rob said to come up with a draft of something. Does that mean right now?
That's up to this body.
Okay,
right?
what do you want to do? Do it right now? Somebody word it? Resolution?
We don't know when we're gonna be able to take action again, when we will have a
Let's-
quorum again. So I
let's do
think
it now.
time is
Let's
of
do
the
it now.
essence.
We have 20 minutes.
Do it.
Well, I would say I resolve that we, as a body, encourage New York State to continue to explore ways to make the effective meeting of quorums for doing the business of the people, including exploring the quorum standards as currently defined, to potentially considering other options such as majority of members seated rather than member council, which would then take out those vacancies, and or exploring further the requirements of what would be needed to include remote participants under extenuating or extraordinary circumstances to be included as part of quorum, and further to review their process for filling vacancies to try to find efficiencies to achieve that in a more expedient manner. And this is just encouragement, so that's the highest level I can make it.
I second Tina Zervian.
Okay. Any further discussion? I just want to make a comment. You are really a prepared member of this council coming with that. Thank you very much.
I just have a question.
Dan
Maybe
has-
maybe Rob can answer this. Like, once we adopt this resolution, where does it go?
Where do we want to send it,
Where,
right?
So the obligation of a public body is, because we're using, these not remote procedures, because we're using video conferencing, is to make a recording of this available, I think within 5 business days. So post it on the website.
I guess more specifically
Resolution.
is the resolution itself, in order to get it acted upon, what would be the next step?
Who are we writing the letter?
Yeah, exactly.
So again, I leave that to the body, right? Who are you writing the letter to?
So we write it to the speaker, the majority leader, and the governor.
The Secretary of State.
The Secretary of State.
Okay, go
Just
ahead.
all of those named, just them.
Dan just added that, Charlie, whatever. Who we send it to, is everybody in agreement with that? Okay to add that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll continue with the vote unless somebody else got a question or a comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstaining? Motion carried. Wonderful idea.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Dennis? Yeah?
Yes.
I'm not sure I'm gonna have another opportunity to do this, so Dennis, Tina, and Dan, I've been working with you for the past 6 years, and clearly you've been working with my predecessor. I just want to put on the record that the Division of Community Services and DOS truly appreciate your service and dedication. I don't know that I could have done my job as director and work with the council if it wasn't for your guidance, patience. The fact that Tina and Dan are still here also speaks volumes to their desire to not fulfill CSBG's mission, but to serve the community. So I'm doing this on behalf of the Secretary and the Department of State to thank all 3 of you for your service on the board, and to truly appreciate and thank you personally for just guiding me as you have during my tenure here at the DCS. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Anybody else before we do it? Jackie, you got another comment? You look like. What's the lunch?
Good luck to you.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Looking forward to working with you.
Did we have a motion to adjourn? don't even, okay, is there a motion to adjourn? I thought we started it, but maybe not.
So moved.
Well, second,
Second.
no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed, abstaining? Motion carried, meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Rob, for all your help. Getting me straightened out. Thank you.
Yeah, everyone.
Hey, tell me about it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
See you there. You're